I'm sorry that we as a society let you down. I'm sorry for polluting you, filling your water with microplastics, destroying your underwater forests brimming with potential cures for countless diseases, and decimating your marine life. We were given so much, and yet we wasted it. It was our duty to protect Mother Nature. The world isn't the same anymore. We are struggling. We didn't realize what we had until it was gone. If only I could go back. I'm sorry we failed.
Why are we out here?
Dive down and tell me what you see.
Okay. Man, why have I never seen this before?
Why haven't any of us noticed this? We have to tell the world what's happening to our reefs.
Coral reefs, known as the rainforest of the seas, are a haven for marine life. Coral polyps are tiny, soft-bodied organisms related to sea anemones and jellyfish. Corals provide homes for thousands of animals and plants, and grant us the oxygen we breathe. An estimated 25% of all marine species live near the coral reefs, even though they take up less than 1% of the ocean floor. These reefs provide billions of dollars worth of economic value to people every year, through fisheries, tourism, and protection from storm waves.
Sometimes you cry your big blue eyes.
But it's here I began to notice that the ocean was in a different state of health than I had once imagined it to be. I had pictured the Pacific to be clean and filled with vibrant coral reefs, flourishing with marine life. It didn't take long to learn the reality of the critical condition of the ocean.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you know what a coral is? Have you seen these before?
Yeah, I'm a Little Mermaid.
You don't know what it is though?
No.
Do you know what it does?
I think it keeps us healthy.
Yeah? How?
Because it comes from the ocean.
And how does the ocean keep us healthy?
Because, oh no.
You don't know?
No.
Well, what does this look like?
A bumpy rock with holes in it and carved.
Do you know its purpose?
No.
No?
No.
So you don't know what this is?
No.
Do you know what a tree is?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They're kind of everywhere?
Yeah.
What do trees do for us?
They make us have oxygen.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we can do what?
So we can breathe. Yeah.
What if I told you that this was just as important as a tree?
Okay.
What color is this?
White.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And what color are the corals in the movies?
Rainbow.
A rainbow?
Yeah.
With like a lot of fish?
Yeah.
Just like Aylin, I too thought the underwater world was this bright and colorful place filled with life. We brought along our friends Ava, Tarzan, Brother Nature, Alicia, and Renee to see in person what's happening to the reefs and what we can do to help save them.
I guess you want me to tell you something majestic, right? Like something that you would see in like a movie or like a picture book. It's more like a graveyard. It's like apocalyptic, you know what I'm saying? Like.
What did the reefs look like?
It looks like they were dying.
Like they were dying? What if I told you we only have 30 years before they're all dead?
That would be sad.
Crazy, right? What do we need to do?
We need to save it.
Corals around the world are being bleached, which then leads to their death. Coral bleaching is where the coral lose their symbiotic algae that produce the food they need to survive. This leaves them vulnerable to other threats and diseases, and even kill the coral colonies from starvation.
What a lot of people don't understand when they hear about coral bleaching is that really it affects corals, the building blocks of a coral reef. And once we lose those building blocks, we lose entire ecosystem function. So you can imagine as you start pulling pieces out of this extremely complex environment, it stops behaving the way we know it. And what we end up with is something very, very different.
Innovation for new technology to help build reef resilience is essential in our urgent crisis. Luckily, there are organizations such as the Great Barrier Reef Legacy who are a global leader in marine expeditions, delivering innovative science, education, and public engagement to accelerate actions vital to the future survival of coral reefs.
Now, the little small dots you see on there are called polyps. So now we take this environmentally friendly putty, it's like a glue, and you stick it on. And then you find the ridges on the rocks, and you stick it in there, right?
And you mentioned when they're left alone, they grow a lot faster, about 6 times faster, right?
When they grow on the reef, we think we grow them about 6 to 7 times faster than they grow naturally by stressing them on the trees like that, yeah.
This is coral number 1. He was already here. And this is my boy Albert. He's strong, sturdy. He's getting ready to live his life in the ocean and become a big old coral. Because we're helping restore the reef, baby.
And they're all gonna join together eventually, and then they'll all just be Carl, I guess.
No, they're gonna be Albert.
They take small cuttings from coral that have withstood previous bleaching events that are attached to underwater frames to grow. After 6 to 12 months, the corals are attached back onto the reef. From one small cutting, thousands of new corals can be created. Once those coral fragments grow, they will help recreate the reef environment, and marine life will be able to return while also strengthening the new reef. We heard of an eco-friendly resort there called Hamanasi and wanted to see what they're doing to help save the oceans. Hamanasi has eliminated all single-use plastics. It was awesome to see their handmade straws from bamboo. They support local products and farms, switch to reef-safe sunscreen, and teach their tourists about the reef and how they can help save it. It was so inspiring to see a resort support a healthier planet. And after seeing how they instituted these changes, I realized all hotels could also make similar positive changes. While I was filming one of the local beaches, I met a boy named Karim. He was only 12 years old, but the most knowledgeable 12-year-old I'd ever met. Here's his message to the world.
It's white, and the turtles will probably think it's a jellyfish and they will eat it, and it will get stuck in their intestines and they will die. You can take your own bag and put your stuff in your bag so you don't use any more plastic.
Seems like a little thing.
Yeah.
But if enough people do it,
it will be a big thing.
There won't be that.
Yeah. This won't be here. And a small thing can make a big difference. We need garbage bins. Yeah. Thanks. There's a lot of plastic and stuff. And eventually this will end up in the sea, and something will eat it. Maybe years it has been here and it hasn't degraded yet. No matter how hard we try to clean our village, people still come and mess it up with plastics and stuff.
What's the solution to this epidemic?
I think the solution for this is to inform them, educate the people about the use of plastic, and tell the companies to stop using plastic, to use something even expensiver than plastic. Even though it costs a lot of money, it will still make a difference in the world. So there will be less animals dying. They're just living their life being animals, and we just come here to throw garbage and kill them. kids don't really know about it, so it's up to the adults to teach them about it. Everywhere you go, you see plastic.
Although Belize is making giant steps in preserving their oceans, unfortunately, they are still seeing death in their reefs. You're from here, you're from Belize, and tell me about the reef, your experience with it.
Yeah, when I was growing up, the reef was very bright, and there was so much healthy life on the reef, and now they're dying.
So how was it?
Crazy, man.
What do you mean? Was it as alive as you
It's
thought?
not like it looks on the internet, that's for sure.
No way.
It's like all the coral are just like fields and fields of dead coral, and it's crazy. There's still so much marine life, but like everything is dead. Everything is the smallest resemblance of like some live coral, but it's crazy. You look around, everything is so green, so blue, so perfect. You wouldn't expect that. Like beneath the layer of water is just dead, but it's crazy coming from Hawaii to like seeing like pretty good reef to here. It's like you never want to see this happen to your home, that's for sure.
Since 2017, they started coral projects whereby they partnered with hotels to be able to restore degraded reefs around the hotel areas.
Right away, we went to our hotel staff and asked about their conservation practices.
We have also partnered up with the Marine Conservation Society of Seychelles. We've done a snorkeling trail where snorkels are guided with the guest, and they explain everything the environment is going through. And we have a coral nursery. We're doing a coral restoration program. For this past year, we've stopped plastic straws, plastic water bottles in the rooms. We've stopped completely plastic bags. So if you imagine hotels with hundreds of rooms and all the plastic that they could consume is quite enormous.
I couldn't believe how much coral death we'd seen through our journey leading up to this point. I was hoping this would be the turn for good news, but it wasn't. The surface is so dark I can't even see underwater. What's happening to the reefs here?
I mean, these reefs are being destroyed at an alarming rate, and the problem is today, there aren't very many of them left. We study the role of sharks in ocean ecosystems and try and understand how sharks are shaping the world around them. Sharks around the world are experiencing huge population declines, and this is forever changing the face of our oceans. We need to understand how sharks and how ocean health are related and how that affects us as human beings.
Seeing that our cold water reefs were in the same critical state as our tropical reefs shocked me. Each corner of the world seemed to be affected.
I was in Kauai when I was like 11 years old. My grandma lived there, and I remember snorkeling for my first time, and just like I was amazed by the colors and the amount of fish. 10 years later, to the same spots, and it was so dead and so much different than what I expected.
It's crazy because nobody knows, and it's affecting us all, and it's affecting all of the ocean, and so we really just need to start fixing it and bringing awareness to it and having everybody know and using the right products and not using so much plastic.
It'd be one of the most rewarding things to bring up a family and allow them to see the world in the way that I did and not have to explain things that are extinct because we weren't able to treat our earth with enough care.
It was here that we worked with the charity Coral Gardeners, who were my main inspiration to make this film in the first place.
This lagoon in front of my house, it's like 80% in Maharipa, in Moria, 80% of the reef is dead. We are collecting coral mostly broken by humans, and we are planting them back on the reef so that we can have new babies coral that will grow and do a new reef.
When you go down there and you see this little piece of coral and you can plant it and you know that that's your piece of coral that you're bringing back into the environment, it's a really good feeling, and we need those little good feelings to keep going in the conservation world because it's so much doom and gloom all the time.
We headed home to Hawaii. When we arrived, we immediately went to have some much needed conversations with some of our good friends. You were explaining to me earlier how the sprays that people are spraying on their lawn, how that can impact the environment negatively.
Yeah, well, the World Health Organization just put out a claim that Roundup is guaranteed a cancer-causing carcinogen. Huge chemical corporations here that farm experimental GMO seed. So where they're farming, there's a lot of water outlets that run from the mountain all the way through to the ocean. And so out in front of those places, the reefs are dead. You know, there's been major die-offs of sea urchins out there, like millions of sea urchins dead. Well, you look right down the street from my house, we got a huge golf course for the last like 20 years or 30 years. The reefs out front where all the rivers come out are all dead. There's no fish, there's no limu, which is seaweed. All the seaweeds die. And so when the seaweeds die, the fish don't come around. The reefs die. The fish feed the reefs. So it's become like an epidemic of overuse of these things that make your life easier but aren't good for you and your family.
Chemical sunscreens, first and foremost, primarily are threatening our coral reefs. What you put on your body, the sunscreen-wise, washes off into the ocean, and those chemicals are actually killing off our coral reefs.
What chemicals in particular?
Primarily oxybenzone and octinizate, but there are more studies showing that all of the chemicals in chemical sunscreen formulas are harmful to coral reefs.
So what are the alternatives?
You definitely want a mineral non-nano zinc oxide based sunscreen. The mineral non-nano zinc oxide is not harmful to the coral and it cannot be absorbed by the coral, so it mitigates any toxicity.
We started noticing declines in coral reefs around 1980, 1985, which is about the same time that personal care products like sunscreen lotion were used prominently by tourists going to these beaches and visiting these coral reefs. What we're doing is we're looking at oxybenzone, a common UV chemical found in many sunscreen lotions and aerosol sprays. Oxybenzone can cause an adverse effect in coral at 62 parts per trillion. That is equivalent to 1 drop of water in 6.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So you don't need a lot to cause a lot of damage.
The oceans are providing the majority of the oxygen that we breathe, and it's this really neat symbiotic relationship between the coral reefs and the marine life, and the marine plants, and the phytoplankton to provide all of that oxygen for us.
So it's scary to think that by 2050, it's projected that we won't have any coral reefs by then, and knowing that most of our oxygen comes from the oceans and from the reefs, and that's a very scary thought, and I can't imagine what life will be like without it.
All the islands out there in the world are basically, they almost have this like shield around them, which is like the reef, right? And it protects like the raw ocean coming in and like eroding the land.
Yeah, like this house wouldn't be here. You know, if this reef all dies and crumbles, and then there's no protection here, all these houses would go in.
Seem like we are in survival mode. Because if we look outside, it looks beautiful, it's nice, but we don't see the subtle change of what's happening. So I think that that's a hard thing to always be aware of.
I think the most important thing to remember is how connected even things from
halfway across the world affects your backyard.
But learning the science behind everything, that 70% of our oxygen comes from the ocean, I realized that we need to do something. That everyone needs to care about this. That our oceans, our land, our sky, like everything's connected and we're part of that connection, and we need to start taking that seriously.
I've learned so much while working on this project. How everything in our oceans play a role. And when just one species disappears, then the entire ecosystem could collapse.
It's sad when you hear the facts about the disappearance of sharks worldwide. 70 to 100 million are killed every year, and they're looking in the last 30 years that we've wiped out 90 to 95% of the world's shark populations. And it's a keystone species. It shows the health of the oceans. You know, if you're missing these apex predators, everything else is kind of fall apart underneath of it. So they're really kind of like a look into the future of what's going on with our oceans. With the disappearance of sharks, I mean, we could see a whole collapse of the ocean.
So everywhere where shark populations have been wiped out, they've seen a degradation of local reefs and a crash in their fish stock populations. And this might be attributed to the fact that if you don't have a predator that's picking off those weaker, sick, wounded, injured animals, then there's overgrazing, so the fish could just eat all the coral, but ultimately end up starving. Overpopulation, where they don't have enough to eat after this happens, or diseases spread. So if there's no doctor in the society and disease spreads, then you have this big crash.
If you enjoy breathing outside every day, this affects you and you need to act now.
Our generation was brainwashed to be lazy, to do things the easy way and not the right way. So like it's our responsibility to teach our kids and lead by example, especially, that we gotta do things the right way.
I can't imagine walking outside and having to wear an oxygen mask just to breathe.
The thought of that terrifies me. I've got no idea.
But why don't, this is what I don't understand. Why does the whole world not know this right now? It's making me like scratch my head. Why is everyone walking around?
Look at this. You look at it, it looks pristine. You don't think any more about it. You know, no matter where you're from in the world, you rarely think about what's happening under there and how that impacts us. But it does, and it will.
In order for this to work, we must all do our part to make change.
You as the consumer have all the power. You vote with your dollar. When you go to the store, you're the one that's going to pick out whether you choose that item that's wrapped in plastic or what kind of chemicals you're buying and what you're really ultimately supporting.
And by supporting these businesses that are prioritizing sustainable business practices and innovation, it's like we're directly speaking to what we value as consumers.